All it takes is a single click, a pivotal point, a defining moment, one moment of change to alter the entire course of the story. At least, that's how it usually goes, doesn't it? For one moment, the hero is at their lowest, defeated, disillusioned, drained, and the next, the plot is arrives. The music swells, the tide shifts, and the next journey begins. Yet, somehow, in a quieter, less fantastical way, the same rule applies to reality as well. Before every single decisive moment that transpires, there is a single catalyst that sets things in motion. Chances are, it happens when we least expect it to. But when it does arrive, it arrives with a bang. I'll admit, when I first received this topic, I was quite apprehensive. To me, it felt vague, abstract. I did not understand the beautiful meaning that it could encompass and everything it could contain. But once I delved deeper into it, once I understood the core of meaning, I realized that it was everywhere within me. It was within me, it was around me, and it was in every single story I've ever been inspired by. Ex nihilo. A Latin phrase meaning out of nothing. It symbolizes the origination of something out of absolute nothingness. Sounds surreal, doesn't it? Something akin to a magician pulling a dove out of a hat, or maybe whipping stars out of space. But isn't it fascinating that such a wondrous notion, something so magical, is often completely common? The Mona Lisa was once a blank canvas. Before Beethoven's most beautiful symphonies wafted through the halls of Vienna, there was utter silence. Every single invention that changed the world, every innovation that changed the entire course of history, began as a scribble on a napkin, or a fleeting thought, or a what if that refused to go over. Even in this very room, everyone here has created something, be it a skill, a hobby, a dream, or even a version of themselves from utter scratch. And isn't that what ex nihilo truly means? Sculpting, shaping, creating, building something extraordinary, something worth being proud of from absolute rock bottom. But this is in no way an easy journey. It requires incredible hard work, diligence, perseverance, courage, and definitely a hit of luck. And if there is one person who has taught me what ex nihilo looks like in its truest form, it is my father. Raised in a modest household, he had to transfer from a Tamil medium school to an English medium one. A change so abrupt, so disorienting, so sudden that it left him struggling to even learn the language, much less keep up academically. This, combined with how his stammering was overlooked for most of his life, my father's childhood was a series of struggles and silent battles. Even after graduating, his dream of becoming a government official seemed further and further, despite countless effortful nights and countless days of hard work. Yet, even as my father details aren't strictly reliable, I was quite a dramatic kid. The details were heavily embellished in my diary. I would try to keep the details strictly relevant here or here. So, it was first grade. I had just entered my new school and I had a crisis. You see, as I was growing up, my parents were quite intent on the fact that I would be made well prepared for school. And I was quite an enthusiastic child. I loved to learn, so I went along with whatever they said. But if there was one thing that constantly evaded me, one thing I simply couldn't get a hold of, it was English. You see, English and I were not on speaking terms. I couldn't speak the language at all. And as I entered my new school, as I began interacting with my new classmates, I was completely astonished to see that they were all somehow amazingly fluent at it, while I could barely get through a couple sentences without stumbling over my words or lapsing back into something. And little kids can be quite judgmental, you see. Over a week had passed, and I had no friends. I sat at the last bench of my class, alone, and the funniest part was, I didn't seem to mind it. I didn't want to particularly want to make an effort to learn the language, and if that meant I had more bench space to myself without a 6-year-old breathing down my neck, I was okay with it. My mother, on the other hand, was not. She had been quite a social butterfly in her school days, and the fact that her only daughter was becoming a bit of a social pariah, it did not sit well with her. She desperately tried to get me to learn the language. She made me speak English at home. She asked me to interact with my friends, learn from them, speak with them. And see, that was quite hard, since I did not have friends in the first place. I tried telling her, I still remember this one incident from when I was younger, when I tried telling her that if I spoke English every day, if I became so proficient at it, so fluent at it, I would eventually forget my Tamil roots. To which I still remember how she sighed, looked me in the eye and said, "We'll burn that bridge when we come to it. We'll burn that bridge when we come to it. But for the love of God, let's arrive there first." My mother had this saying, Tamil நம்மளோட ரத்தத்துல இருக்கு. அது நம்ம தாய்மொழி. அது நீ எப்பயும் மறக்க மாட்டே. Which basically means that Tamil is in my blood. It's my mother tongue, and no matter how old I grew, no matter how many languages I learned, I will never forget it. And that is that. There were no more counter arguments I could make. My only argument fell apart at the seams. That was quite a traumatic day. So, going back to my original story, days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and things hardly ever changed. Except for one little detail. I was no longer alone. Through some twist of fate, or maybe the handiwork of my class teacher, who was becoming a little worried about my integration into school life, I now had a friend. If one could call her that. Anjana was more aptly described as a force of nature. Endlessly chatty and abnormally smart, she was determined to get me to be her friend. And me, the first few months that we spent together, they were intolerable. I was in every sense of that word, completely and utterly overwhelmed. And the worst part was, half the time I could barely understand what she was saying. I was already having trouble with the language itself, but the way she spoke English, it barely sounded like English at all. But eventually, she grew on me. And as our friendship grew, so did my desire to learn the language. And thus it began. I started coming out of my shell, I began interacting with my classmates, I began making an effort to talk with them to learn from them, just as my mother wanted me to. I began reading every single storybook I could find, storybook after storybook, from children's tales to school library copies of Geronimo Stilton and Eric Dickens, and to this day, my love for reading endures. And it's forever my sanctuary for when things get tough. And so, I learned English. Anjana is still one of my closest friends, and to this day claims that I'm the only one who can match her energy and her spirit. Yes, my friendship with Anjana was the catalyst. But everything that happened from that point onward, it was me. I didn't just want to learn English, I wanted to be good at it. And that furious desire fueled me and pushed me to do things that back then felt impossible. Looking back now, I realized that that was my ex-nihilo moment. I didn't even know what the phrase meant back then, but I lived it. we have anticipated our whole lives. Or it could be something that we have dreamt. But it is eternal, it is inevitable, and it is universal. It is born from perseverance, diligence, and hard work. It is born from the unyielding belief that someday, any day now, it will be our moment to shine. It is born from the ferocious desire to one day watch our wildest dreams come true. It is all it takes is a single click. One moment to change everything. And that moment, that change, that something out of nothing, it might just begin